Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Dynamics Fortnite Fridays.
Where we cover everything Dynamics great and small. Welcome to October, Bart.
I know fall is really here in force now. We had a nice, 30 something degree morning.
It was actually 40 here in my backyard, but it's like we're up in
Yeah,
the northern reaches of the U.S. in Minnesota, so it's like the big changes in seasons, which kind of is in line with the dad joke I have this week. I don't know if you got one, Bart.
really?
Yeah.
So lay it on me, lay it on me.
Okay. What do you get when you take a pumpkin's its circumference and then you divide it by its diameter?
Half a pumpkin.
Pumpkin pie. I super like this one. That was like one of my favorite ones in quite a
Oh,
while.
you got a
So
math
yeah,
joke to go with it.
yeah,
I
I was
love
like, that's just awesome. It's like pumpkin and pie, and it's like, yeah, it's like I'm just super geeking out on that. So, feel free to use that, folks. So
it. Yeah.
that one tickled me a lot. So, okay, what do you got for me?
All right, so mine is all about the fashion craze that is crossing Germany.
Oh no,
Have you heard of it?
no. Oh,
Oktoberfest.
okay, once again, I hope our content is much better than our jokes because I'm not sure if I'm going to use that one. I'll try it. It's like
No
I'm meeting
Oktoberfest? Oh, come on.
it's like I'm meeting a buddy for coffee that late this afternoon. And I'll try it out on him. So see if he likes it.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
okay, that'll be the litmus test. Okay, so what do
Perfect.
we got, Bart?
All right. Well, starting with Power Platform content, we've got some new capabilities. My first two are all about Power Pages. And so the first one is that GitHub Copilot, if you are a subscriber to GitHub Copilot and you're a dev and you work on Power Pages, you'll love it that you can now use Power Pages, kind of the participant, the at Power Pages mention, to get specific guidance around coding in Power Pages while in Visual Studio or VS Code. So pretty awesome. I don't think I need to try to go through the exact things you can do if you're a dev working on Power Pages and putting liquid tags and all that kind of stuff in there, and you can use GitHub Copilot now to do all that. That is the message. The next one is also with Power Pages, but this is more of a end user thing that when you publish a list on a Power Page that's showing a bunch of records, we now have the ability to turn on AI summarization for that list for the end user of your page. And it does things like puts whatever is showing in that list of data into chart format so that they can interact with those charts, and allows you to ask for summarizations of whatever they're seeing in that chart. So pretty cool to have this just be a configurable thing that you can throw out there on your Power Page to let your end users have some better experiences with that data with very low effort on your side for turning it on. As you are probably aware, Copilot for Sales has the capability to interact bot-wise, and that you can extend what's based there with Copilot Studio. And there are a few things in September that came out in Copilot for Sales and that extensibility that it's worth kind of mentioning. Most of it has to do with just easier, either first launch of this Copilot for Sales or better authentication experiences without having to hit sign in nearly as many times. So the first one is in Teams. When you first open Copilot for Sales, it used to be that it would tell you you have to go to Outlook to sign in and assign the appropriate environment in your tenant to associate with Copilot for Sales in order to have it actually start rendering. Well, now you can do all of those things right from within Teams, even if it's the very first time you launch. And that's a big deal, especially for people who are way more heavily Teams users than Outlook users. For extensibility, this is more of a pro dev thing. We've got connector plugins for Copilot for Sales, and we've got a sample out there, and there's some walkthroughs to help you understand how to use those pro code plugins. And then the other thing that I was mentioning is a zero-click sign-in experience. So it just automated single sign-on for Copilot for Sales extensions that you put out there using Entra ID. So as long as the extension is set to also use Entra ID, you don't even have to hit sign in anymore, the way you used to when you would publish an extension for Copilot for Sales. So nice improvements there. For Power apps. Every month, Clay Wiesner puts out a really nice summary of all of the new features that have come out in the month. So he put this out right in early October about what all happened in September. And so there is a nice YouTube video called Pulse that gives you some nice summarizations of some things that we've done in the theming area, a new responsive template for creating lists and detail screens really quickly, choosing data sources that cross multiple controls in a single click. So there's some nice content. So watch that if you have a moment. Plans we talked about last show, so I'm not going to do any other mentions of that. The Copilot PowerFX formula explanations and configuration worked in commercial tenants, but not in the regulated industries tenants like GCC until now. So that is now there. It just happened on September 24th. So take advantage if you can and you're in one of those tenants. I think I've talked about Power Platform well architected a few times, but it's really nice that the Power Apps intelligent application workload is now part of the Power Platform well architected framework that is a super great framework for your enterprise grade things that you build as part of Power Platform. You don't have to worry about it nearly as much for all the kind of citizen dev stuff, but any enterprise grade thing, you ought to at least pay attention to the guidance we give you in that capability. For governance, public preview announcement for masking sensitive data in the column level security realm. So we can actually mask data without it being specifically called out as part of a column, and then we can do it as part of a column level security capability so that you can give view rights to someone to see data in a protected column, but mask the content so that they only see like the last 4 digits of a credit card or the last 4 digits of a social security number or something, which might be exactly the right amount to show them because that security was important to put on there that would prevent someone from being able to create or update the information. But even the view rights was too much because it was kind of PII, and now we can mask that. So that's a really nice capability. We've had cross-tenant license recognition for a few things in Power Platform, but we have expanded this for even model-driven apps when using Dataverse. So it doesn't really matter whether someone gets the license for using the premium connectors in Power Apps from their home tenant or from the guest tenant that they are accessing it from. If they are crossing tenants, that will be respected no matter where the license comes from. Catalog we talked about in the last show, wonderful stuff. New capability to put formal relationships in place in Dataverse between native Dataverse tables and virtual tables. So making that much more structured, and that will help in lots of different ways. So if that is of value to you, start linking those. And other than documentation updates, which are always fantastic, it's worth looking through that list. That's Clay's update for what's new in the Power Apps framework. I got 2 other things, Dan. One is if we remember, I think it was last show. If not, it was the show before that we talked about a new Copilot capability for looking at Canvas app galleries with SharePoint. And so if SharePoint was the data source and the gallery was showing a bunch of records, you could use Copilot to filter it, to sort it, to even search it. And so that was a big deal for people that had Canvas apps that were built on top of SharePoint data, but it didn't help any other data sources. So now we have just launched that same capability with SQL Server. So if your app is built with SQL Server and it's been republished after at least this version of the Maker Portal, then you should be able to use Copilot to do stuff. And what you'll see is not going to show up in the design canvas. So when you're in the Maker Portal, you won't see this show up. You have to actually look at it in the runtime of the app, and it's only showing up in the web right now. It's not showing up like on the devices, but in the web version, you'll be able to sort, filter, and search with Copilot. It'll fly out like you're seeing here. And you can ask lots of different questions. And that the SQL capability has one additional verb that SharePoint doesn't support, where you can actually ask questions using the in verb. So basically a contains. I think there's a few other things that are important to know, but I'm not going to rattle through them. You can certainly read this at your leisure. And the last one is completely undocumented as far as I can tell, but I stumbled across somebody talking about it on LinkedIn, so I went and I found that it is in fact the case, even in my tenant that I have access to, that is a commercial tenant that should be just like all of our customers use. And that is the ability to look at your capacity in the Power Platform Admin Center. And if you click on Dataverse, there's a new button that shows up. You can see right above the environment, there is a little button that says allocate capacity. And when you click that button, you get this screen that pops up on the other side where you can designate for the specific environment that you have highlighted, what do you want to have for database, file, and log capacity limits. And this will allow you to basically get notified when this environment hits any of those limits. And you can even say, I would like to have these alerts come when I see somebody hit 80% or 90% or 95% or whatever you want to set for percentages and not just crossing the threshold. So it's really a pretty similar capability to what's been in the Center of Excellence toolkit for a while, or the starter kit, whatever you want to call that. That we've had that in that kit for a while, but it was not built right into the admin center. Now it's built right into the admin center, so even easier to continue to administrate without having to continually update things. Now, it does not lock it to say you cannot cross whatever that capacity threshold is. You still have a tenant capacity. This is letting you designate where you want alerts by environment, but you can over consume what's there. So that hasn't changed. We're not going to stop an environment's Dataverse from being able to store the next data record when someone's trying to transact. What we stop is in that environment, you would no longer be able to turn on new functionality. Like I don't think it would let you create a new table. I know it wouldn't let you stamp out a new environment if you were to run out of capacity on the tenant level. So there's those kinds of things that happen to prevent you from doing certain things, but it won't stop usage. And with that, I think it's all the content I've got, Dan. I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So let me just share my screen and let me know when that comes up, Bart.
I'm seeing it.
All right. So again, 3 line items. Because remember from a fortnight ago, a couple weeks ago, this is a big update. Now we're only doing 4 updates a year, so I'm kind of breaking those into 2 different shows and kind of split those up. So, last week I went through some Business Central. I went through some HR, and then I went through finance. Today I'm going to go through some commerce, the platform updates, and then supply chain. Supply chain is going to take a significant amount of my time for this show. So in commerce, not a ton of big updates for 10.0.41. There's only 2 updates, and they're not they're not gigantic. They're not huge. So if we look at this, it's like the first one is improve OPAS. Device connectivity, right? So those are the web POS. What this is basically saying is like it enables to keep the connection open so it doesn't lose those connections, so you don't have to redo it, so it keeps it open and doesn't close it all the time, which creates connection errors to that. So again, just a usability type of update. And the second thing is, and this is a little bit bigger, so this is supporting Android hardware station extensibility. Before we could do this on Windows, we could do it on Apple products, but now it allows you to do the Android hardware station extensibility, right? So if you actually want to support physical integration with printers and things like that, especially if you do stuff in Brazil with those printers or South America and other Android devices. So a couple small updates for commerce. Not a ton in the platform updates as well either. So platform, the updates is like it's just a web client, right? So there's a deep link to finance and operation records that correspond to the Dataverse virtual records. And so you kind of mentioned the virtual tables, Bart, earlier in the show. So it's like
virtual tables are awesome.
Yeah, they're fantastic because they don't have to be Dataverse tables. They can actually be external data records, right? That they just actually share within the system. So it's like you have the rows, you have the tables, and be able to get at that data, even though that's not native to the Dataverse. So it's beautiful, and that's especially useful for doing like a Canvas app with F&O because F&O is still in the SQL Azure SQL database. It's not in the Dataverse natively, right? So that's a big deal. So this allows us like the deep links into this, and it's like, so this allows shareable URLs, right? the forms and records to be able to share those. And the URL generator will enable scenarios that you can actually link to reports and emails and external apps and so on and so forth, and specific data onto that. It's native to the root forms. You can actually put specific data context that should be displayed when you're doing these forms along with it. You're able to share any access with those users, but it's also it's secure, right? Prevent unauthorized access to any of these that are generated, right? Or the exposure to any sensitive data. So it's like, so that's really important that, it's not going to open everything up, right? So again, just a little bit in the cross-platform, but this is a big deal for us with these deep links to be able to integrate into the, make it more of a One Dynamics platform. Well, what I'm going to spend the majority of my time here talking about is what's new in supply chain. And so supply chain, the first thing is under cost management, right? So what we can do is we can add the different types of transactions we want in recalculating the weighted average. And the weighted average is a costing. You can have standard, weighted average, LIFO, FIFO. There's different costing methodology, but this is specifically for weighted average. And you can choose whether they include or exclude specific types of transactions that you want into that, and include like different items by maybe their item model group. Or do you want to include this transaction without it actually financially closing, so you can actually do the reporting on those type of things. And so this is only during recalc. So when you're doing that and you're doing some inquiries in there, so it doesn't affect the actual inventory closing, because there's a standard gap process that you need to do that with that, right? But it also gives you the option to include the physical value or in the weighted average or not. So for cost management, that's really nice to really get some deep insight into your costing systems. The next one is something that I was kind of hoping for quite a while, and this is you can link a transfer order to a sales order line. Now, it's super common business practice to do a drop ship or a direct ship. So it's like you'll have a sales order to a purchase order, and this will actually create that purchase order, and they're linked. And so you can look at the purchase order and you see where they're linked to a sales order, and vice versa. You see that they're completely connected, right? Well, on a transfer order, if you have to get it shipped from a different warehouse to a centralized warehouse, to be shipped out from there, from that warehouse. Traditionally, we'd have used a planning system. The planning system say, hey, we have to create a transfer order from that the supplying warehouse to the demand warehouse to get it shipped out. And it would be pegged, but it wouldn't be a direct link to that. This allows you to actually create that transfer order directly from that sales order. So that's a big deal, right? And then also you can create new. You can actually see the sales order from the transfer order and the transfer order from the sales order. So those are linked directly as well. It'll also give you a warning if you're trying to create multiple transfer orders, one sales order line. Now that's a warning instead of an error, because you might want to do that anyways. Because maybe it's like there's a huge consolidation. You have to make some bulk and then ship that out. But it'll give you the warning so you don't duplicate things accidentally onto that, right? And then, of course, it's going to be marked to that or allocated to that sales order. It'll also auto reverse those quantities in the sales order where it's created from when they're delivered out. So that's a nice feature to have. The next thing is it's like, okay, external. You can sync external changes within the inventory visibility, right? So when syncing those external changes, we can do this. It syncs anything that's like an order has been created, the journal record's been done, and supply chain, and aggregate that to make an optimal performance on that, right? It'll manage the flow, so you can actually trace the transactions back to the source stocks, run the historical inventory analysis where it was during this period of time, right? There's a new API to post changes, right, from the source stock. There's automatically stores the transaction through the API into that, right? So it's kind of some nice changes into that. So this inventory visibility is becoming a really powerful middleware, and I guess the term isn't middleware, but product of a coordination orchestration engine for supply chain. Another, and this is still on preview, is be able to let's see, trace goods. Okay, there I am. So is this on preview? So the tracing goods through the preview system, right? Or on preview. What this allows you to do is adhere to the EU and the German Supply Chain Act requirements. Now, this will be able to track lot, or what we call batch numbers, and serial numbers through the entire supply chain, right? So we can see the as-built configuration of an item. We can track it all the way through, any forward or backward searches. So it's a trace and a track all the way through it. It's integrated to the production floor all the way through. So just a nice system to be able to do that. No, we had a trace track, but it wasn't just wasn't super easy to use, and it was kind of kludgy on the reporting. So this is a nicer view of this. And it's also dataverse as well. Oh, the next thing is like an inventory track time series inventory into inventory visibility. So this is another thing with inventory visibility. Now, what does it mean by a time series? So it's like usually it's like if you have 100 units on like in the warehouse, you have 100 units, but what if 50 are allocated, so you only have 50 available? What if we're building 75 more? You have 125 available when that date's done. And so that's going to be actually a time phase. When that is going to be built, maybe 2 weeks out, we will have that inventory available or at a time series. So what it does, it gives you an accurate available to promise functionality date. And so inventory visibility for that orchestration engine can help coordinate that across the different systems that you have. So it might be a different e-commerce or some different sales system that might be in a competitor sales system. So again, that's tracked all the way through. So inventory visibility. Approval POs for mobile devices. So a lot of my partners have been building this and just running a Power App, and actually some of my colleagues do, for purchase requisitions and POs for approval. Now it's just there. We finally have a native Microsoft built directly to our customers mobile app for our customers' use. So all you need to do is go to PPAP or PowerPoint Admin Center, and then enable it through publishing the Power App, writing the code components, and then you can just install the D365 app. So the next thing is decoupling registration from time attendance. This is going to save me and my customers a lot of time. So what this allows you to do is you can actually have workers on the production floor put time against an order without having to go through manager's approval for time registration and adjustments and things like that. This is a big pain. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to get the cost out of it, but we're not going through and paying the workers from their time on that. I mean, some companies do, but most don't. Now, this was a problem because on the route management, if you do like route management versus job management, it would allow you to actually just do that without registering that time. But if you want to get like finite scheduling, just better job registrations and things like that, or more accurate costing, you want a job scheduling. And you actually want to go through and do that job scheduling. But I had to go through all that registration stuff. Now you don't have to do that. So for me, this is just a time saver, and it was pretty much unnecessary for so many different companies. Some companies need it that way, and they have the policies. Other companies do not, right? Okay. And then the next thing has to do kind of with the MES and production control too. So this allows you to register time spent on working on projects in production. So our projects within production. So if you're doing an R&D project, or if you're doing in like a big enterprise, huge project, maybe you're making an oil rig, right? But you have to send some things to the production floor. You want to actually time against that, post that against the project, not necessarily against the manufacturing order directly, and have that roll up. So this allows you to actually do that within the MES system itself. Transportation management, so enable quality and good transit orders. So this is nice because if it's in transit, you don't have it physically available, but sometimes you'll get quality tests and stuff from the different vendors or registrations that you have along the journey, just to make sure that it's going to be good quality components, and then you can do something before it hits the docks, before you get inspected there. So that's just a good thing. Outbound shipping process policies, you can enforce that to the order matching. It's like you want to make sure that it's like you have to fill the complete order. You can have it by default, by customer, by order, by source system, whatever you want with that. And then the last thing is like unannounced returns for warehouse management or warehouse management only mode. So remember, we can run the warehouse system is so good we can run it as a standalone. We can offer that as a standalone. But now we can do returns back into that that are unannounced for those returns in that warehouse management only mode. Okay, there's a few feature enhancements I want to talk about. So first of all, on the fixed asset or the asset management, not fixed assets. So this is the enterprise asset management. So you can print work order documents, or you can print the work order attached documents from a work order. You can have that printed out, whether it be a PDF or something like that. The next thing is on inventory management in warehouse. Inventory dimensions with license plates can be cleaned up, right? If they're more than a year old and they're financially updating, you don't have any inventory in hand, let's just get rid of those license plate and clean the system up a bit. The next is on master planning. So we're enabling the batch calculation of capable to promise, right? Even when there are errors in it. So it'll run it as far as it can and just kind of ignore those errors and do what it can to actually calculate that. So oftentimes it'll, like before that, it'd just actually bomb out, and you like, a partial answer sometimes is better than the full accurate answer. It's like, so you can give an estimate of that capable to promise based upon capacity and material that we have on hand or are coming in through a purchase order with the lead times. So on production control, this is just a usability function. So we're able to hide completed jobs in the Kanban board. Before, it's like if they're completed, you kind of have to sort those things out, or just kind of get them out of the way. It's like, well, just get rid of them because you don't need to be working on that. It just makes it a whole lot easier. On procurement and sourcing, we can decide whether we actually want to consolidate direct delivery orders on sales orders. So if you have multiple different direct deliveries to the same customer on like orders, you can actually define whether you actually want those consolidated. On planning, many of you know that you can actually consolidate orders within a time bucket or within that same vendor as well. So another thing on procurement and sourcing, you can enable purchase parameters control delivery information. So it's like you can, when they synced on the sales order to purchase order, do we want the delivery mode and delivery turns to be same on those as a direct delivery? Remember I said the sales order can actually create that purchase order from that direct delivery. On sales and marketing, there's some updates on that. So do we actually want to use trade agreements for intercompany sales and sales order lines? So, where do we, because they are two different legal entities within the same, business, I guess. Sometimes there's actually an upcharge, and they might have trade agreements within that intercompany, right? Because it's like they run their own P&Ls. And so this now is allow you to search for that price from that trade agreement from that intercompany order itself, instead of simple agreements. Warehouse management, okay, custom layout prints for container labels on this, and there's some improvements on printer selections. Like you can actually have, like if you have their mobile device that you're carrying around and doing all your data collection for the warehouse movements and things, you can actually have it go to a default printer automatically. So it just kind of simplifies a little bit. And the last thing that we have, the last couple things we have, the load and packing posting, right? So we can execute a sales order packing slip on the background task, right? And then have that match out with according to the data associated with that load. So it's like, so we want that printed out only for that load and printed out for those different shipments that go on that load. And the last thing is location directives located for ASNs. And what this does, it puts all the items on a license plate for one location, for one ASN, for the shipment to make sure that you don't split the items into different locations, right, for a transfer order. So it just kind of simplifies that picking and makes it more efficient. So actually quite a bit for the for supply chain this week.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah, and guess what, Bart? We are actually made it within our target, our sometimes target of 30 minutes.
How about that?
Which is unreal. I know. I should have had a longer joke.
Well, I appreciate everybody joining, and I don't have anything else. If you don't, I say we see everybody in a fortnight.
All right, take care, everybody. Enjoy the fall.